Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are getting into a really central dilemma. It's something every successful organization, every movement eventually has to face.
hmm
What happens when a leader's vision actually outlives the leader?
It is the ultimate test of leadership, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that one question is really what separates a movement that just fades away from one that, genuinely transforms generations.
Yeah.
I always think of it like a giant redwood tree.
Yeah.
It's magnificent, but when it falls, it just leaves a massive hole. What we're looking for is the leader who plants an entire forest.
An entire forest. That's a great way to put it. So we've pulled together research from all over classical leadership models,
Yeah.
organizational theology, even some really practical succession planning guides.
Right.
And our mission for this deep dive is to find that actionable roadmap. How do you do intentional vision transfer? Because, I mean, we see it all the time. Leaders spend years building something that is completely reliant on them.
And the moment they step away, it just stalls. Or worse, it dissolves.
Exactly.
And our sources really make a compelling case here. They say the real measure of leadership isn't, how brightly you shine in your own lifetime.
Okay.
It's how clearly and how robustly that light continues to guide other people after you're gone.
So it's about the anchor of the vision.
It is. The core insight is this. A vision that's centered on yourself, well, it dies with you. But a purpose-centered vision, one that's anchored in what our sources call clarity, courage, and commitment, that creates a legacy.
A legacy that's designed to multiply, not just survive.
Exactly.
And that feels particularly vital right now. In today's environment, everything is so fast-paced. Technology, communication, it all elevates these charismatic founders.
Which is great until it isn't. An organization built around a single personality is just so fragile. It risks complete collapse when that person steps aside.
So vision without succession is just short-sighted.
And influence without multiplication is, well, it's just fragile. What's so fascinating here is that the blueprint for this kind of self-sustaining vision, it actually starts with understanding its source.
Okay, let's unpack that blueprint. Because before we can even talk about multiplication, we have to go back to the origin. Where does this lasting vision, this purpose that's bigger than one person, where does it come from?
The sources are pretty clear on this. They define it as having a divine origin.
What does that mean in a practical sense?
It means it flows from a source outside of, fleeting human ambition. It aligns our finite day-to-day work with something eternal, a purpose that will endure.
That alignment seems critical. It gives the vision a kind of gravity, a permanence.
It does. I mean, if you look at the source material, God is presented as the ultimate visionary in Genesis 1:1. The work was deliberate, it was purposeful, and it was comprehensive.
So the foundation is this high purpose, this deliberate design. I can see how that translates to a corporate level, too. The vision has to be bigger than the quarterly revenue goal.
It has to tap into something transcendent. And this principle of continuity, of expansion, you see it woven through so many historical leadership examples.
That's the multiplication mandate in action.
Absolutely. We see Moses intentionally preparing Joshua. That's a clear organizational transition.
Okay.
Then you have Paul, who is intensely mentoring Timothy. That's a relational transition.
And the key takeaway from that is what?
The goal isn't just to, preserve what the previous generation did. It's to actively advance it, to scale the vision for the next generation.
And if we connect this to the ultimate model for expansion, which the sources point to in Jesus' ministry, he didn't spend those 3 years building a massive headquarters or, writing a bunch of books.
No, not at all. His focus was on intense relational, life-on-life discipleship. He invested so deeply in a very small group.
Preparing them for that transfer of the Great Commission.
Right. He was equipping those 12 to carry the vision forward, but exponentially. The modern equivalent of that isn't just hiring a successor.
No.
It's embedding your top talent right at the highest level of strategic thinking, years before any transition is even on the horizon.
Okay, so moving from that core blueprint to the actual structure. Let's talk about the anatomy of this enduring vision. You mentioned the 3 pillars.
Yes. Clarity, courage, and commitment. A lasting vision. It's so much more than a catchy slogan. It has this distinct anatomy built on these 3 non-negotiable pillars. And we have to start with clarity. That's the cornerstone.
So what does true clarity look like in practice? I mean, beyond just having a mission statement on the wall that nobody reads.
Well, it's about seeing with what the sources call divine perception. Or, in business terms, truly understanding the landscape and the ideal future state.
And that's rooted in deep discernment, not just, a weekend brainstorming session.
Exactly, not just market analysis.
Yeah.
And that kind of clarity, it creates a singular, almost relentless focus. I think of Paul's conviction in Acts 20.24, where he says, I consider my life worth nothing to me, if only I may finish the race.
Wow, that's not just focus, that's like existential alignment.
It is. And
Yeah.
for that clarity to be effective in an organization, it needs two components. It has to be compelling, and it has to be concrete.
Compelling in what way?
It has to ignite hearts.
Yeah.
It has to appeal to that transcendent why. But
Yeah.
then it also has to be concrete.
Actionable, measurable, something that bridges the gap between that lofty dream and the daily grind of execution.
Precisely. The sources use the example of the blueprint for the tabernacle.
Oh, right.
It wasn't a vague suggestion like, hey, build something nice for worship. No.
Yeah.
It was a divinely imparted, highly concrete vision. Specific materials, exact dimensions, clear processes.
It shows that an enduring vision needs that actionable detail.
Absolutely. If you can't draw a diagram of it, or build a timeline, or measure the output, then the vision is just an aspiration. It's not real yet.
Okay, so that brings us to the next two pillars, courage and commitment. This is where the leader's role really shifts, right? From visionary to stewardship role.
Exactly. The stewardship role. It implies that the leader is holding the vision in trust for a greater purpose.
Which should, in theory, free them up from their own ego.
It should. The leader acts as a steward of a sacred trust, and that requires character and integrity far more than it requires charisma.
And that connects directly to courage.
It does, because the hardest part of stewardship is having the courage to release control, to accept the risk of the unknown.
And then commitment ensures that you stick with it.
Yes, it ensures endurance, patiently nurturing new leaders until they can stand firm and they own that vision completely for themselves.
But isn't releasing control just incredibly difficult? And honestly, inefficient. If I'm the founder, I know all the pitfalls. It's just faster if I do it myself.
It's faster in the short term, but it is catastrophic in the long term, which we'll definitely get to when we talk about the pitfalls.
Okay.
Part of that courageous stewardship is maintaining a kind of spiritual sensitivity. The sources mention Elijah on Mount Horeb.
In First Kings, right.
Yeah. God wasn't in the spectacular wind or the earthquake. He was in the gentle whisper. Visionary leaders have to prioritize listening, not just talking. Listening to the divine, to the market, to their own team.
That attention to detail, that sensitivity, that's what lets a leader move from just defining the vision to actually multiplying it. So let's get into that actionable roadmap. What does an intentional design for succession really look like?
It starts with a mindset shift. Legacy requires you to view succession not as a crisis to be managed when someone retires.
But as a continuous process to be stewarded.
Exactly, a divine process.
And we can break this down into, the organizational model and the relational model.
Precisely. The Moses-Joshua model, that was very intentional and formal. Joshua didn't just inherit the role overnight.
No, he served as Moses' aide. He was there at the tent of meeting.
Right, which means he was intentionally exposed to the strategic decision-making, the emotional weight of leadership for years.
It was total immersion, on-the-job training at the absolute highest level, and it all culminated in that public affirmation, that transfer of authority.
And he inherited not just a title, but the monumental vision of conquering the promised land. In a modern context, this might be a co-CEO model or the practice of bringing your successor into every single keyboard meeting.
Right, into all the big negotiations.
Exactly. Then you have the Paul-Timothy model. This one emphasizes the relational side. Spiritual fatherhood.
And it provides the core multiplication strategy.
It really does. Paul lays it out so clearly in 2 Timothy 2.2. Entrust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others. It's a 4-generation handoff.
Paul to Timothy, Timothy to reliable people, and those reliable people to others.
That's how you get scale.
But that raises a huge leadership question. How do you identify the reliable people?
That's the key, isn't it? You have to identify them based on character and sincere faith, their integrity, their intrinsic motivation, not just their immediate skill or, their technical competence.
Because competence can be taught.
Competence can be taught. Character, rarely. You need someone who is fiercely loyal to the vision, not just to you personally.
And this is where the resources get so practical. They lay out this clear, actionable roadmap for development, the 90-day mentoring cycle.
This is so critical for moving from theory to execution. It breaks the whole process into 3 distinct phases to ensure full ownership.
Okay, so weeks 1 through 4 are the vision deep dive.
Right. This phase is all about the why, the biblical roots, the core values. The mentee has to absorb the story of the movement, the struggles, the key turning points, why the vision was even necessary in the first place. You're building conviction here.
And cultural alignment.
Yes. Then in weeks 5 through 8, you have skill and strategy immersion.
So this is the shift to action.
Yeah. Here, the mentee moves out of the purely academic. They're involved in strategic discussions, not as an observer, but as a contributor.
And crucially, the leader has to start delegating real tasks.
Real tasks, not busy work.
Yeah.
High-leverage responsibilities, where the mentee can actually apply the values and strategy they just learned.
Yeah.
If they're going to lead, they have to experience failure and success, but under supervision.
Makes sense. And then finally, weeks 9 to 12, empowerment and reflection.
This is the moment of release. The leader has to let go of the reins on certain initiatives. They have to encourage the mentee to lead new projects completely.
And the reflection part is key.
So key. The mentor provides structured feedback, but more importantly, teaches the mentee how to critique their own performance against the clarity of the vision. You're moving them from absorption to application to full, confident ownership.
That kind of intentional structure is vital. But even with the best plan, there are these huge pitfalls that can derail everything. Let's talk about the 2 biggest threats.
The first one is centralization. The sources call it the peril of possession.
This is the danger of my vision. Singular, possessive. It just creates a single point of failure.
And it fosters that very fragile cult of personality around the founder.
Yeah.
And what fuels this is often really subtle stuff. Hoarding information, a deep fear of losing control, and that pervasive I can do it better faster syndrome.
Ugh, that one is so tempting.
It is. And while it might save you 10 minutes on a presentation, it subtly kills mentorship and organizational maturity in the long run. The successor never develops the muscle of ownership.
And the result is the ultimate breach of stewardship. You fall for the myth of the indispensable leader.
And you become the lid on the entire organization's potential.
So what's the second major pitfall?
Stagnation. This happens when the vision, even if it's faithfully carried forward, becomes static, irrelevant to the current environment.
We see this all the time when organizations start mistaking the method for the mission.
Exactly. The mission is eternal, but the methods, they have to be temporal.
This is the sacred cow syndrome.
That's it. Those outdated programs or traditions that prioritize continuity over actual current impact. The defining mindset of stagnation is just, we've always done it this way.
When tradition is more important than impact, you're just prioritizing comfort and the past over courageous relevance.
You are.
So if the symptoms are rigidity and irrelevance, what's the remedy? How do you fight stagnation?
You have to cultivate a vibrant learning culture. You have to embrace ruthless strategic evaluation and be willing, courageously willing, to prune unproductive programs.
And empowering new leaders must be a part of that.
It's the most powerful antidote, that 90-day cycle we talked about. New blood brings fresh energy, diverse perspectives, and, a willingness to challenge the sacred cows. It's necessary for adaptation.
This deep dive has completely recalibrated how I think about success. I started off thinking about, personal performance metrics. Now I'm just thinking about who I'm empowering and how resilient the organization is when I step back.
And that's the necessary shift.
Yeah.
You have to recalibrate success from personal accolades to faithful stewardship.
Right.
True success is measured by faithfulness to that foundational vision, the genuine empowerment of others, and how embedded the vision is in the culture. It means the purpose thrives, whether you're physically there or not.
So what does this all mean for you, the leader listening right now, who wants to build something that truly endures?
The final charge is threefold, and it mirrors the anatomy of the vision itself. First, lead with clarity. Constantly seek that highest perspective on the mission.
Okay.
Second, lead with courage. That means embracing the challenge of release, trusting the structure and the people you've built. And third, lead with commitment. Intentionally invest deeply in those reliable people who will carry the mission forward.
That emphasis on courage and release, that's the hardest part for any founder, for anyone who has poured their life into something. It requires trusting that the vision is bigger than your own abilities.
It does.
So here's our final thought for you to carry forward. If you could guarantee 100% that your successor would lead faithfully in your absence, if you could just eliminate that fear of failure entirely, What is the one thing, the one specific area of control, the one vital responsibility that you would choose to release to them today?
That's a powerful question.
Something to think about. Go forth and build that enduring echo.